I've been saying for a very long time that politics should be a serious business. I mean, sure, it's a comedy because it's a bunch of idiots running around who are telling you what to do and botching it every which way and then blaming you. And if you watch it as a tragedy, it's really sad. But if you watch it as a comedy, it's hilarious. But the truth is, politics overall is a pretty serious business because you're talking about people attempting to solve problems that affect hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. You're talking about people who wield extraordinary amounts of power over your everyday life. And that means they should be serious people. They should be people who are working within our institutions in order to make incremental changes that better your life over the course of time. That's what politics theoretically should be about. And the job of a politician is different than, say, the job that I have, right? The job that I have is to articulate the principles that I believe in and then to hold people accountable when they don't actually face up to those principles. The job of a politician is to understand where their principles are and then to make the necessary adjustments to those principles, the necessary compromises in order to incrementally move the ball forward along the lines of their principles. That's what a politician's job is to do. But what our politics has basically become is a bunch of social media influencers. And I'm talking all the way on up to the presidency. So yesterday, Barack Obama shows up at the White House. He's back. And I think I really do think that Barack Obama represents a gap in how Americans have treated the presidency, have treated politics in total. Barack Obama was the first celebrity president, like just treated as a celebrity, fated as a celebrity. He was a person who treated the office as a platform. He is not somebody who treated the office as an institution to be wielded for incremental change. Every change was going to be sweeping. He was the leader of a movement. He was a radical politician who wasn't really a politician. He was a messianic leader who'd been thrust into this and treated as a cultural icon by members of the left, treated as one of the Hollywood glitterati. And he ushered in a new era in American politics. I mean, before that, basically American politicians, no matter how much the media tried to spin them as celebrities, they were still politicians. Bill Clinton was always a politician. George W. Bush was always a politician. Ronald Reagan had been a Hollywood star, but he was treated like a politician. He was not a Hollywood star by the time he entered office. In fact, he was mocked for the fact that he'd even once been a Hollywood star when he was running for office in 1980. Richard Nixon was a lifelong politician. Gerald Ford was a politician, right? If you go back far enough, what you're talking about is not celebrity politics. You're talking about politicians who have a political job to do. And again, a politician is more like a plumber than they are like a messianic figure, at least in the American system. You're not supposed to treat your politicians as though they are people who have been arranged from on high to save you. And you're certainly not supposed to treat them the same way that you would treat a Hollywood celebrity. And yet the merger of culture and politics took place under Barack Obama, and it's been really, really bad for American politics on all sides of the aisle, by the way, not just for the left. Because once politics becomes not the art of getting things done in the context of checks and balances, upholding rights while pursuing better lives for people. Once politics becomes not that, but simply a platform for you to become more famous or more rich, for you to stand outside the system and shout at the system, politics breaks down. Yuval Levin, really good thinker over at the American Enterprise Institute, he had a book recently called The Time to Build. And he talked about how politics had basically shifted from a place where institutions shaped the people who are if you went into Congress, Congress shaped you. You had to work within the boundaries of Congress to get things done. If you became president, the institution of the presidency shaped you. It aged you. You had to work within its boundaries. There were constitutional norms that were supposed to affect you as a human being. And how politics has shifted from institutions and working within institutions to people who are using the institutions as a platform. And here's what Yuval Levin writes in his book, A Time to Build, because I think it's super relevant. Because what you're seeing in politics right now, the breakdown in politics and the dissatisfaction of Americans with their politicians comes from exactly this. Americans look at these messianic figures who, again, do not want to operate within the boundaries of their institutions, who see the institutions as thwarting them. And they expect the world from them. Because if somebody comes along and says, the institutions are what stand between you and glory, come with me and I will break the institutions and I will fix everything for you. People tend to put their faith in those people. And that faith ultimately will be disappointed. And that's particularly true if that person poses as a messianic figure and is utterly incapable of carrying off the charade, right, which is Joe Biden. At least what you can say about Barack Obama is that Barack Obama acted the part. Right? If he's going to be a messianic figure, at least Barack Obama acted it. In his very personage, he embodied the idea that America was going to come together racially. He was a terrific speaker. He's a very good politician, right? He actually embodied a lot of these things. Joe Biden does not. You can say about Donald Trump on the right that at least Donald Trump was a real celebrity. I mean, he was a celebrity long before he was a politician. And so when he was a celebrity who became a politician, it wasn't that awkward a merger. As I've said before, Barack Obama and Donald Trump are actually weird kind of photo-negative inverses of one another. Like Barack Obama liked to see himself as this very genteel politician, a person who who was operating in the mode of like Benjamin Disraeli or something. But that's not who Barack Obama was. He was selfie stick guy who posed as messianic guy, which is kind of like Trump, right? I mean, they're operating in the same context. The context just changed. So Yuval Levin talks about these. He says, on the threats to institutions that are characteristic of our time, he says, quote, we will find that the lure of cynical distance and of playing the outsider are deadly to the kind of renewal our society requires. And to the idea that politicians, they stand outside the system, they rip the system. That's their job. That their job isn't to operate within the system. That what makes a politician successful is saying that the system itself is bad, campaigning against the system, which has been a hallmark of Barack Obama and Donald Trump and Joe Biden. This is now a hallmark of pretty much everybody in politics. I'm an outsider. I'm campaigning against the system. Yuval Levin says that destroys the institutions. He says, we'll notice that the culture of celebrity turns out again and again to be the enemy of a culture of integrity. We will see that our pervasive and polarized culture war is drowning our society in poisonous acrimony, and perhaps above all, we will find that the people who occupy our institutions increasingly understand those institutions not as molds that ought to shape their behavior and character, but as platforms that allow them greater individual exposure and enable them to hone their personal brands. What he says, Yuval Levin says, human beings are born as crooked creatures prone to waywardness and sin. We therefore always require moral and social formation. Such formation is what our institutions are for. But instead, what our politicians are doing is they are wrecking those institutions so they can build monuments to themselves. They're taking these institutions that have been carefully, gradually built up over the course of centuries, and they're just dismantling them and then reshaping the bricks into a platform for themselves. And Barack Obama was the leader in this. He was the leader in this. He came along pledging to be a unifying president who was going to operate within the boundaries of the law. And by the time he had a second term, he was, I'm Obama pen and phone guy. Right? If Congress won't do what I want, it'll be a pen and a phone. Selfie stick, hanging out on Jimmy Kimmel. He is the embodiment of all of this. And I know Democrats love to worship at the altar of Obama, and it's specifically because of this. It's because Barack Obama was the first celebrity president. We'd had people who were famous before, but they were expected to then conform to the office. General Eisenhower was very, very famous, but then he was very much expected, and he did, conform to the office of the presidency. Barack Obama always operated as an outsider to the presidency. So when he arrives back at the White House and is treated as a celebrity, there's a reason why. It's because he was primarily a celebrity, not primarily a president. So he arrives back at the White House to unveil the portraits. This is, again, this is Joe Biden, who is sinking in the polls. And so welcoming Barack Obama back is a way to try and transfer some of Obama's popularity to him. Now, that doesn't work. A celebrity's popularity is non-transferable. That's not a transferable credit. It's not fluid. It's not fungible. Barack Obama can't simply arrive at the White House, rub Joe Biden's balding head with the hair plugs and everything, and suddenly Joe Biden is significantly more popular. That's not the way this works. Barack Obama couldn't even do this with members of Congress when he was president of the United States, let alone when he's the ex-president. But that's what this is about. And you can see it, by the way. Every time Obama shows up at the White House, it's so awkward because the media love him. The staff love him because he's famous. He's a celebrity. He's magnetic. And sad old, poor, shambling Joe over here is just a career corrupt politician playing at this. It's sort of like LBJ taking over for JFK, right? JFK was a big Camelot, big celebrity. Well, when you look at the contrast between Obama and Biden, it is stunning. So Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama returned Wednesday to the White House for the unveiling of their official portraits. The paintings were revealed during a ceremony in the East Room, hosted by President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden. It was the first time Mrs. Obama had returned to the White House since she and Obama left in 2017. Remember, Mrs. Obama has also used the White House as a massive platform for herself. She arrived in the White House perceived as an extraordinary political radical, Michelle Obama. And this is a lady who, during the 2008 election campaign, had suggested that she was never proud of her country until her husband was nominated for high office, which is a pretty extraordinary thing to say when you went to Princeton University, Harvard Law School, and got a cush job on the University of Chicago Medical School Board. I mean, that's a pretty good life. So if you're only proud of your country when your husband gets nominated, that says something about your politics. She was then transformed by the media into a level-headed moderate. And now, of course, she's treated by the media as Oprah, and her book sold some 12 million copies, and she's treated as a cultural figure, a cultural totem. Mr. Obama visited earlier this year for an event honoring Obamacare. The ceremony, which was packed with former Obama aides, marked the first portrait unveiling at the White House since 2012, when former President George W. Bush and Laura Bush were received by the Obamas. Former President Trump didn't host his predecessor for a portrait event, as many recent presidents have. So first of all, if Trump had invited Obama, you think Obama was going to show up and do that event with Trump? No way. The White House portrait collection dates to a painting of former President George Washington that hangs in the East Room starting in the 1960s. The White House Historical Association sought to acquire portraits of past presidents and first ladies not in the collection and began financing portraits of recent presidents, according to Stuart McLaurin, the organization's president. This is the Wall Street Journal reporting. Mr. McLaurin said, quote, the association meets with the outgoing president and first lady. The couple picks the artist and the association pays for the portraits with private funds. Obama's portrait was painted by Robert McCurdy, an artist known for a photorealist style. So, kind of, it looks like a photo, basically. It's a fine portrait. It's kind of stark because there's no background. It's white, so it's made for memes, which, of course, the internet immediately picked up on. Mrs. Obama was painted by Sharon Sprung, whose work includes 2 portraits at the U.S. Capitol, including one of Jeanette Rankin, the first woman elected to Congress. And here is a little bit of what it looked like. Right, you can see here is Obama, and kind of smiling. There's Michelle, and she's leaning back against a couch, wearing a formal gown. Obama, of course, is there's the sort of casual JFK-esque appearance here. It's painted with his face sort of half in shadow, almost the way that the JFK presidential portrait is. That's not, I'm sure, any level of coincidence. The portraits are fine. That's fine. But the bottom line is that when Obama comes back to the White House, he does so as a celebrity. Obama literally was just handed an Emmy. They gave him an Emmy. So that means that we've now had 2 straight presidents. Biden hasn't won an Emmy yet. We now have 2 straight presidents who've won Emmys, which says something about where we are as a culture. Donald Trump won an Emmy before he was president, right, when he was doing The Apprentice. And Barack Obama has now won an Emmy for the signal feat of reading narrative about America's national parks. They're going to give this guy the EGOT before he's done, because, again, he's a celebrity. And he's more in line with Jennifer Lawrence than he is in line with George Washington. Here is CBS News reporting on this signal feat.
Obama won the Emmy for Outstanding Narrator on Sunday for his work in the Netflix documentary, Our Great National Parks, which is a wonderful series if you haven't seen it. The 5-part series featuring national parks around the world is produced by the Obama's production company, Higher Ground.
Okay, by the way, you think that he won that Emmy because so many people love that national parks documentary? Or do you think it's because they're all fans of Barack Obama? By the way, I believe this is actually his second Emmy. I think, didn't he win it was a Grammy. He's now won an Emmy and a Grammy. He won a Grammy for voicing his book or something. So again, politicians and celebrities, the merger of that is really, really bad for American politics. And then trying to transfer all of that momentum over to politics ends up with not only bad policy, but it also ends up with some real awkwardness because this sort of celebrity does not transfer over to Joe Biden. Joe Biden is playing a messianic figure, but it just doesn't play. It doesn't play at all. So Joe Biden is there with Obama, and he talks about how he starts basically worshiping at the altar of Obama.
You know, we trusted him, all of you in this room. We believed in him, and we counted on him. And I still do. That's why the country elected you twice. That's why you'll be considered one of the most consequential presidents in our history.
My favorite thing, actually, about Barack Obama, there are not many things I like about Barack Obama as a president or as a human. I mean, he seems like a good father and a good husband, but aside from those, which are important things, obviously, the most important thing. But the thing I actually like about Barack Obama is that he hates Joe Biden. I mean, he hates him. It's really, really funny. Like, if you read the stories about what Obama thinks of Joe Biden, like they're all about how he's sneering at Joe Biden, just bloviating and his logorrhea, his diarrhea of the mouth. Like, it's really, really funny stuff. So the relationship between Obama and Joe, even though Joe is significantly older than Barack, right? I mean, Joe Biden is now 80 years old. Barack Obama, after having served 2 presidencies, he is still only 61 years old. So he is 2 decades younger than the man who succeeded him. And so Joe wants to treat Obama as the younger brother, but Obama just keeps dismissing him. And it's really, really funny. And every time Obama talks about Joe, it's with this sort of seething, just disdain for the guy. So here's Barack Obama talking about Joe Biden. This is casual Obama, by the way. And one of the most obnoxious forms of Obama. There are many forms of Obama. There's formal Obama, there's campaign Obama, and there's casual Obama, where he just starts dropping the G's. A lot of G's just start dropping off the word. It's not dropping, it's dropping. Here we go.
Someone once said that if you're looking for a friend in Washington, get a dog. Our family was lucky enough to have 2 wonderful dogs. But I was even luckier to have a chance to spend 8 years working day and night with a man who became a true partner and a true friend. Joe, it is now America's good fortune to have you as president.
Oh, man, I am so happy he's not president anymore. And I'm so sad that Joe Biden is currently our president. It's just, I think one of the best moments here was Barack Obama started thanking the staffers. And he noted, by the way, all the staffers here used to work for me. Because what he's really saying is all of Joe Biden's supposed feats of legislation. That's not Joe. Nobody believes it's Joe. It's all the people who used to work for Obama. This is just Obama's third term, and here's Obama claiming credit.
As much as I miss our work together, what's been a special joy is to see what's happened since. Because so many of you are doing amazing things, whether it's in government, in the private sector, in academia, or nonprofits. And I'm especially glad to see so many of you serving President Biden as well as you served me.
As well as you served me. But by the way, just a question. When you work for the executive branch, do you serve the president? You serve at the pleasure of the president, but do you serve the president? I thought you're supposed to serve the country, generally speaking. Like, that's a weird way of phrasing that. I know what you're thinking. It's time to binge some more Ben Shapiro videos. Well, you are right. You should. But first, like and subscribe. Perfect. I'll see you in the next video.